We'll hit the go live. Oh.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. For those that are watching live or for those that are catching up the recording. And very warm welcome to my amazing panel that agreed to join this conversation on a rather complex and delicate topic. I'm going to be your host, Yana Yaneva, for the next 1 hour. I personally am a psychologist and people and talent specialist. And I chose this topic to go through one day after International Women's Day because I feel like we don't really talk much about it, or we rather talk too much about it. So I'm going to jump straight into a conversation because my women here have really lots to say about stress from both sides of the Atlantic. And I would like to open with rather disturbing statistic from last year done by a university research. I'm not going to quote names for whatever reason. So they have interviewed more than 660,000 women across the globe, all from different countries, different backgrounds, different walks of life. And they have discovered that in the last 5 years, the stress levels across women across the world has increased 49%. To compare, and that's the interesting bit in the part, is that women living or born and bred in economically well-developed countries are way more stressed, and I mean 77% more stressed than women actually living in not so well-developed economies in countries. So, rather disturbing, but I would like to open now the conversation and maybe address that question specifically to Hannah. If you can please introduce yourself briefly and just tell us your thoughts on those numbers, and personally for you, how do you deal with stress? Where do you go in those groups of numbers?
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Hannah Libas. I am the public relations team for She Rises Studios. Where in terms of in the States here, I see women operating in a frenzy constantly in business. It's always go, go, go. And society seems to believe that everything has to be done right now, which causes anxiety, depression, stress, which also leads to chronic illness, among other things. You start to burn out at both ends. And I think that women as a whole here are really looking for a more simplistic way to run life and business together. They're looking for that balance. And I don't necessarily know if there really is a true recipe for balance. Where I fall into that is, yes, I do get stressed. Yes, I do get burnt out. I experience the same things as everyone else does. I think it's how we handle it independently. My zen is beach therapy, reading, journaling, and just really trying to focus on solution more than being reactive, more being proactive. Like, we can't control every single thing that happens, right? But the things that we can control, that's what I try to focus on. Am I perfect at it? Absolutely not. I think that's another thing that women get so hung up on is looking perfect, being that ideal perfect woman that social media and society across the world has created that just doesn't exist. So I operate in progress over perfection, and I focus on learning from the mistakes that I've made, or learning from other women and men who can help me to be less stressed, less anxious, so that's kind of my little nugget.
So do you personally find more stress at work or more stress at home or outside? How do you categorize the different stress levels in your life?
Well, again, that's a loaded question for me. Work is not so much stressful. It is extremely high paced. We work in 16 different countries on a regular basis, and we have a lot of divisions. I think there's 19 employees, and between myself and Adriana, we oversee it all. And at some point between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. PST time zone, my brain goes into noodle mode. So I have to kind of step away for a minute, regroup, regather, step away and just breathe, and so that I can be fully alert and attentive to what's happening. It's funny because Ashley's on here and she works with me directly on She Rises, so she understands what I'm saying. Then in the personal, I fight a chronic uncurable disease. And so I have to really always make sure my health is my priority over anything else. And sometimes it's very hard to separate the two, because when my career is at its monumental moment, then it's like life says, oh, wait, I'm going to throw this in there and let's see how you juggle that. And again, I'm a human being, so I have like these moments where I'm like, why me? What's happening? And again, it goes back to finding that peaceful spot, knowing this too shall pass, controlling what I can, letting go of what I can't. A lot of times it's easier said than done, but I have an extremely supportive family. I have like the best husband in the world, and I'm sure all wives say that, but Jerry speaks Hannah. And so having that support there, my kids, my She Rises team, grandkids, it's really, I think we all need to have that dream team for each one of us. Like really being able to lean in on certain people and things, and being able to be honest. Like when I'm feeling out of it, I have to be honest in saying, I can't serve you today, or I cannot help you today because I'm not at my best, and not be afraid to admit it.
Yeah, no, totally agree with you. Unfortunately, what you said in the beginning, there is quite a lot of pressure coming from society. Expectations are really pressuring upon women nowadays, and to have that anchoring somewhere, family, friends, the tribe, it does make a difference. But Annabelle, I'm going to come to you next. So obviously we just heard, what's kind of the situation in the States on the other side, and we know the numbers worldwide. What do you think is happening on this side? Because I know you're based in UK. Can you introduce yourself briefly and just give us your thoughts on that?
Yes, absolutely. My name's Annabelle Beckwith. I'm the founder and director of Yara Journeys Limited, and I'm a business consultant, coach, and trainer. And I work internationally, so I find it's kind of everywhere, really. I think there are cultural factors. So just to address this, is it different this side of the Atlantic? I do think that there are cultural factors that impact the extent to which we take on stress in our lives. So I'll come back to that in just a minute, if I may, but just to sort of step back a little bit. For my own personal experience, and also working with a wide variety of entrepreneurs and executives, there seem to be internal factors that cause them stress, and that might be their own mindset. So to Hannah's point, holding themselves to impossible standards, comparing themselves to other people who seem to have it all figured out. They don't, by the way. If anybody tells you they've got it all figured out, they're either lying or utterly delusional, because we're all work in progress. Nobody has, but we compare ourselves to other people. We hold ourselves to impossible standards. Sometimes we don't do ourselves any favors, because the habits that we develop, procrastinating, avoiding difficult issues, answering an email every time it comes in, don't do us any favors, because they steal our time and put us under pressure. There's also external factors, again, societal pressures, work pressures. I heard somebody told me recently, and I can't even remember who it was, it might have been you, Jana, that the 40-hour work week was invented, so to speak, at a time where one person typically the man of the family would go out and work, and somebody else, typically the woman, would stay at home and do everything else. And so now we find ourselves in a situation where we're all trying to do everything. And I think as women, sometimes we, certainly for me, when my children were growing up, I felt guilty if I wasn't keeping the house tidy and playing with my kids. But when I was keeping the house tidy and playing with my kids, I felt guilty for not working. And I think some of the workplace practices that we have are not helpful. Some of the office-based practices. Now, coming back to that thing about cultural differences, there is in Asian cultures, for example, in Southern European cultures, much more of a leaning on families, on elders. And that, I think, is a big. My mother's Indian, and I can certainly see that with my Indian family. If we think culturally about eating, like typically in the UK, you might grab a quick sandwich and scoff it at your desk. In France, that is absolutely unheard of. You sit down and you have a lunch. You communicate with your friends. You connect with people. The same in Southern Europe. Eating together is a big thing. Spending time socially together is a big thing. And I think sometimes in the UK and with people that I work with, very busy lives, they've not prioritized the most important things in their life, family, health, etc., due to various internal and external factors. And therefore, they've not set themselves boundaries. And if there's one thing that I could say to anybody who's watching or listening is, think about, in what situations do you find yourself really stressed? What decisions and choices have led to that point of stress? And if you want to change it, what changes do you need to make, and what boundaries do you need to set for yourself to look after yourself? So exactly as Hannah was just saying, if she's feeling unwell, it's like, sorry, I can't help you, because I need to look after myself first and foremost. So those three things would be key things I would offer. So on one hand, long answer to a short question, Jana. On one hand, human beings will feel stress in a similar way, dependent on their circumstances. So we're kind of all the same. On the other hand, in terms of behavior, in terms of culture, in terms of working practices, I think there are differences around the world and what some of those external stress factors are.
Thank you. Totally makes sense. Now, a bit of a side question here, but it just popped up in my head while you were talking, Annabelle. Do you remember the last time you felt so stressed that you had to really sit down and recalculate everything you're doing and how you're doing it and where you need to adjust and make changes?
Yes. It was probably just after Christmas, actually, because it's one of those things. I'm usually reasonably calm, but sometimes the stress gets so, and I think I was trying to juggle too many projects. And one of the things that I found post-COVID is during COVID, I lost a lot of my business, and then it suddenly ramped up. And I was in that stage where I was just saying yes to everything, because during lockdown and so forth, you didn't know where work was coming from. You really had to fight and search to get it. So I was like, yes, I'll do that. Yeah. And then, of course, loads of projects came on board, and I was thinking, actually, I don't know how I'm going to deliver all of this. It's almost like I've got to a point where my brain is just so full of stuff. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And two things were starting to happen. I was starting to forget things, starting to forget to make that phone call, starting to forget to do, whatever it was in a timely manner. And so I was putting increasing pressure on myself because I felt now I'm letting people down. And I do remember one morning waking up thinking, right, I know I'm up to here, but I'm going to take the morning off. And I literally got out of bed, stood up and thought, right, I'm going to make some breakfast now. I'm going to go downstairs. Got downstairs, right, I'm going to go to the kitchen. I'm going to make tea and toast. Got to the kitchen, right, I'm going to make some tea now. I'll put the kettle on first. And it was literally, it wasn't just, when we talk about long-term business planning or short-term, this was like, go downstairs and make your breakfast. But that was the only thing that I could do to gather my wits and think, right, okay, Beckwith, pull yourself together, one thing at a time. And once I'd gone through that process for that breakfast, I thought, right, I'm going to employ the same thing and prioritize appropriately and use, if you've come across the urgent and important, the Eisenhower matrix, really good way of prioritizing your tasks for the day. Just doing that and thinking, that is what I'm going to focus on, getting something done, moving forward piece by piece. And when I have been in times of stress, because again, running my own business, you can't just throw a sickie, you can't just take loads of time off, because there's clients to serve, and even if you do have a team, there's still things that you need to be doing. It's just to make sure that I prioritize, and every day I am doing the essential tasks. Every day I'm doing the essential tasks and moving forward. It might be a step at a time rather than racing over the horizon, but something every day. Keep moving forward, but not to put myself under increasing stress to try and do everything to everyone. And you know what? If my house is a mess, if there are dishes in the sink, they're just going to have to stay there. That's it.
I love that. I absolutely adore that. So take it step at a step, one step at a time. No biggie expectations.
No,
Love
I think you've got to. I think sometimes we have so many pressures that are on us. There's family, there's work, there's social expectations. The media is blasting us, and one of the things that always annoys me at Christmas is the perfect Christmas party, and it's like, are you kidding me? I'm just going to go to some upmarket retailer and buy everything because I can't cook to save myself. But we've got to be the impeccable everything. We've got to be. Now they're talking about being beach body ready, and I'm thinking, I have a body. I will go to the beach.
I'm ready.
But it's pressures from everywhere. And the more of those that we accept and take on, the more pressure that we put ourselves into. Trying to be something that other people expect us to be, or trying to be something that we think we ought to be. I think that's where it can become really quite destructive.
Huge mistake. Yeah, I agree with you. I do wonder though, when exactly did we enter into that stage? Because I don't think it has always been that way. I mean, statistics are saying clearly, last 5 years, huge increase, half double, 49% increase in stress. I guess we can blame the technology revolution, we can blame the social media, we can blame, that perfectionism, and that is really eating us alive at the moment. But at what point we've swapped the idea of looking after myself rather than making sure that I'm going to please and meet the expectation of you? And I think that might be a good question for Ashley, going back to the States now. Ashley, can you please introduce yourself, and what do you think? When did we went so messed up at some point?
Yeah, so hello everyone. My name is Ashley Pekalski. I'm a mindset coach, speaker, and best-selling author. And what I do is I help fempreneurs break through their limiting beliefs so that they can master their mindset, increase their productivity, and create more abundance in their lives. So this is great because it's so funny. A couple of weeks ago, I was talking with my mom's friend, and we were actually talking about like how in today's generation, like society, like everything's changing. Back then, they were raising like 8 kids, living on farms, barely making money to get bread, and they were happy. They were going on with life. Families, divorce rates were like really low kind of thing compared to now. But now even like the stress, it's like getting out of control. And I really do think it's social media. I really think it's that perfectionism that this is the life you have to have. This is what you should be going to doing. And how women should be, or even the mothers, and then the mothers see these other images, and then they start having that guilt within themselves because they're not meeting those standards, I should say, right? And I think like a lot of the society today is putting too much expectation on women, and that's where the stressors are coming, because you're feeling that you have to carry everything together. Like my mom, I love her so much, but she was always like on the go, 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 and lacking her health and everything. And it caught up to her, right? And, that's just like a whole lot of thing that's going on that I think women need to learn about and hear about to actually take care of themselves.
Yeah, I do agree with you. My mom is kind of, I would say, the opposite of that. But I'm coming from Eastern Europe. I'm Bulgarian, even though I'm living in Edinburgh at the moment. But as Annabelle mentioned earlier, it's family getting together, spending time together is such a big deal. We even live in massive family houses, so everyone is at the same place, and that's very important for us. I mean, it's not going to go a year without me going back, or twice a year. I don't feel comfortable not seeing them all the time or talking to them all the time. And one thing my mom taught me was basically, don't allow anything that's out of your control to abuse your thoughts. Just don't. It's not your business. It's not for you to change. Look after yourself. Make sure you are well. If you are well, everyone around you will be well. And that's kind of the attitude I was having when I was growing up. And then I started traveling and I started moving around and exploring the world. And I got so obsessed with meeting expectations and being someone else. And as everyone kept saying, putting that pressure, even though I came from different environment, I still managed to learn that bit. It was just stronger than what I knew before that. So it's really tough to say. It does beg the question, are we dramatizing with stress? Is it overrated? Or are we really so rooted in it and so stuck that we can't live without it? It's part of us now, who we are, and it's going to go for generations until someone put a stop somewhere. But okay, let's go back to my good friend Julian Williams. Julian, thank you for joining us. Can you please introduce yourself? And I know you are a certified grief specialist, therapist, and I wonder, does that mean that you're getting triple and 10 times more the amount of stress because you're taking on other people's stress, like a psychologist or a therapist? How does that work in your life?
You know, so first of all, my name is Julianne Williams. As Jana said, I'm a certified grief educator. I am a healthcare consultant, author, speaker, and my goal is to help people, and more so women, find a path of peace and to find more peace than pain. So, you know, grief is a tough thing to talk about. We're generally grief illiterate, especially here in the United States. And because of all the things that all of the women on this panel have said are true, we don't like to talk about things that are not happy and perfect and the model that we expect to see. So grief is one of those things. But I think what I want other people to understand is that grief is not just from losing a person that we love. We experience grief from so many pieces of our life. We experience grief from job loss, from life changes, from medical diagnoses, from problems with children if we're a parent. We have anticipatory grief for things that are happening in our life that we know probably aren't going to turn out well. So grief isn't just this thing that comes to us that says someone's passed away, someone's died, and now we're sad. There is this whole group of things that happen in our life that create a grief response. And so when we're thinking about stress and overthinking, you know, I do a lot of videos on this. No one has a perfect life. And it's hard to see that with social media, as we've talked about, because we have placed expectations on us in every area of our life, whether it be work, whether it be home, whether it just be what we expect of ourselves. And I can tell you that I was guilty in my young years of doing things because I thought that's what people wanted me to do, but also I felt like I had to prove myself to people. I had to show that I was smart and I was the best and I could achieve more than anybody else. And I got into that loop. Now, I had a beautiful career in healthcare. But with that said, I made a lot of sacrifices now looking back that I may or may not have wanted to make. But at the time, you get into a path and then you continue that path, even knowing that you're stressed, even knowing that you're making undue sacrifices, things that you probably wouldn't want to do, just for some whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. And generally it's around an expectation that someone has placed on you. And again, I don't regret what I did. On the other hand, I see some things I wish I would have done different. And if I would have done those things different, I honestly believe I would have probably achieved the same thing, but I would have had a lot more peace. So honestly, there was a time in my life I had to grieve some of those things. And again, grief is not just about death, although sometimes it's about the death of yourself. And I kind of had to grieve some of that too. So, you know, I would encourage everyone to think a bit about what has caused you to grieve. What is it that you need to walk through those feelings and let them go so that you can take what you need to do next and have that be the most effective and successful thing for you, for your family, for the world? Because as Hannah said, when you're at your best, you can do your best. But you can't do that when you have a bunch of emotions that are flowing around you and that are jamming your thoughts and holding you back. So, you know, I don't know, Yana, if that resonates, but I have to say that as women, we also take on other people's grief. And you asked the question, how do I manage through that? You have to learn to build a bubble of yourself that says, I matter, my feelings matter. I can witness someone else's feelings and I can be there for them, but they don't have to become mine. And it takes practice, but you have to decide that witnessing for someone is okay. Taking on what they have is not. Because again, you don't serve them well either. And so what I try to do is to use a lot of I statements. I also try to reflect back feelings to make sure that their feelings are validated and witnessed without placing my own in theirs. That is the way that I have found that I can help people. I can also stay my best. And I can give them a space that is safe so that they can process through the things that are causing them sorrow, anxiety, depression, unhappiness, and frustration.
Thank you. I love what you said there. Not outplacing my own feelings, understanding others, but not just for the sake of my own, basically. I mean, I think that's what we call an empath nowadays.
Yes.
Having the ability to understand, but still manage to keep your own emotions.
Well, and that makes me think real quick, and is, you know, we do label a lot of things now. You know, I have a 25-year-old daughter and a 21-year-old son, and you know, they teach me a lot of these things that I was like, oh, well, that's interesting. So like imposter syndrome. Now we have something called imposter syndrome, and actually that creates so much stress because people are striving to do these things, but they think someone's going to find them out. And they're going to find out that they're really not smart. They really weren't good at it. And they were just sort of lying all along or whatever it is. But I do think even continuing to find more and more labels, I personally find that more stressful because, you know, we can't just continue to find labels for everything that happens in our life. Sometimes we just have to let things happen. We just have to let those feelings be there and say, wow, I feel a little insecure right now. Not like, oh my gosh, I have imposter syndrome. And now what do I do? Instead, for me, I'm just kind of like, I'm a little insecure right now. I'm going to go do this and it's going to make me a little nervous. And then I'm going to get through it. And then I'm going to call it done rather than trying to label every single thing that happens to me, because then I'm trying to, again, live up to something else or live not in something else, whatever it is. So with that, I'll relinquish the mic.
Right. Okay. I have a question for you, ladies. I really liked what Julian said about how we make up a word, imposter syndrome or whatever. We label it that it's bad. We go and create this entire mess after that, a chaos, and then we suffer from it. Why are we needing so much that whole drama? What is the satisfaction that is coming from so much stress. And Annabelle, I'm going to come to you first. And always being on. What is wrong with this society?
Well, it's an interesting one because absolutely, it's too easy to attach a label to ourselves, and then that becomes how we choose to identify ourselves. And there's always a danger in that because it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and we then start to, oh, I've got imposter syndrome, as opposed to, I mean, I do think it's a useful phrase, but it's important, as you say, Julianne, to recognise this is a momentary thing. I'm thinking today's the day they find me out. They're only just behind me. And then tomorrow I'm fine. But it's also one of those things, and I think this is particularly prevalent in the workplace, where people can sometimes wear stress like a badge of honour. I was here till 7 o'clock last night. I get up at 5 o'clock and run to, and then you see these ludicrous things on social media. I get up at 4:30. It's like, I don't sleep at all and I eat dust. It's like, seriously? But it's that thing around, I'm more stressed than you. I'm working, and it's like, what is our problem? And for me, within a workplace, that's like a cultural thing, that level of, that's applauded, that people are recognized tacitly for being the one who's bringing a sleeping bag and sleeping on the office floor. And do you know what? There may well be times where we've got to work through the night to get something done and we all pull together. But it's a constant, not appropriate. And there's too many workplaces that do condone that. Just a couple of other things that, again, workplaces can, Julianne, just to your point there, our badge of honor should be that we're happy and healthy. Absolutely. And so it's almost like that by the by for businesses. It's like stressed people are not motivated and they're not productive. So, go figure. But it's a twofold thing. That within the workplace, increasingly, especially during COVID and lockdown, where more people were working in a hybrid environment, where there's the temptation to be always on. We're working from home. I don't want my boss to think that I'm sloping off to have lunch with a pal, or down the pub having. I've got to be here. I've got to be here. I've got a good friend, Alessandra Lavia, who's a specialist in digital behaviours and digital well-being, and the research that she has done, again, shows that people in the workplace are more stressed when they are trying to work in this hybrid environment for several reasons. And one is because there's this always on thing, in which case people need to set boundaries in the digital environment to say, listen, I need to pick my kids up then, I'm up earlier or later, or I'm having my lunch now, rather than feeling the need to answer the email right away just to show your colleagues that you're actually working. But also people are stressed, and in my head, this comes back to the family connection piece that you mentioned, Diana, is people feel disconnected from their team, and that can be a stressful thing. They feel isolated, and that can be stressful. So there's quite a lot going on there, and I think it is important, just to make one point before I finally shut up, is. Whilst Julianne has been talking about her work with people who are experiencing deep suffering and grief in many circumstances, and my inability to walk downstairs and make myself a cup of tea without planning it out step by step, don't wait until that point. Some of this is about embodiment and recognizing as soon as you start to feel tense, where physically do you feel it? Now, for me, I tend to clench my jaw, grit my teeth, and it starts to really hurt here. Somebody else might kind of clench their fist. It looks like they're just wanting to deck somebody. They're becoming that frustrated. But as soon as you recognize these physical symptoms, notice it, stop, breathe, think, in that order. Stop, breathe, think. Consciously and physically, release it. So that for a moment you're physically releasing that moment of stress. Because if you don't recognize it and release it, then it could be that it gets to a point of extreme stress, extreme discomfort, where actually we're now in headless chicken mode. We're ceasing to make any sensible decisions at all. So at the earliest sign of discomfort and stress, that's the time to take a deep breath and pause for a moment. Gather yourself, become present in the moment, and then move on.
I love what you said. Breathe in, breathe out. calm down, then go in and do something specific. But
Yeah.
it's very true about the rolling of the eyeball. You know, I had a work environment where if I can go at work at 7, okay? If my regime is to wake up early in the morning and go at work at 7 and finish at 3 because my brain is a mush by 2 o'clock and I need to switch off, my boss used to roll her eyes at me every time. And I was like, do you realize that I've been here since 7? I mean, you came at 10. How are you going to know that? Am I supposed to sleep here on the floor just because you were not here? Yeah, we didn't work very well together, but as you know, many other of my bosses. But anyway, moving on. Right, Hannah, you're a business owner as well. What is your point taken or point of view on the whole work environment, expectations, managing? As Annabelle said, I don't sleep anymore and I eat sand and I'm still alive and healthy.
I don't know if anybody saw, but I was just bursting at the seams because it's funny but yet sad because what she's saying is so true. You know, I feel like we're going to put Ashley on the spot here because Ashley is a She Rises team member. Like, she works with me. So here's my personal take. As an employer, as a CEO, as a boss, whatever title people go by, I believe it is our responsibility to develop a work culture that is understanding to the day in and day out stresses of life and business. And what I mean by that is on our team, we have mothers. I'm a mother. Ashley is a mom. Heather is a mom. Angela Bell is a mom. And the list goes on and on. What happens if one of our children or grandchildren, in my case, needs me? If I get a phone call from my 10-year-old's school saying, hey, mom, we need you to come get Sophia. We have the work culture in our community and in our team to know, okay, you go deal with that. We've got you. That's the type of team we have. We also try to do where I'm 100% a huge fan of humor. When shift happens, SHIFT, I'm trying to be really good about my potty mouth, but when that stuff happens, it's more taken in a humor way than what Annabelle said about, clenching your teeth, your shoulders go up. And I'm really going to have to watch my face now when shift does happen and I'm on screen because it made me think like, wow, I wonder if my face says what I'm thinking. And if it does, we have a problem. But at the same time, sometimes it's good that people understand where you are at that moment. Being honest with who is in your team and who's around you, so that they understand like, okay, so, maybe so-and-so's not having a great day. How can we assist? It goes back to being a problem solver. And it's proactive instead of reactive. If we're always in reactive mode, like so-and-so offended me, right? People are going to offend us all the time. People are going to do stuff. And 99.9% of the time, they don't even know they're doing it. So you're the one sitting there like, really? Oh my, like you're just having a WTF. Oh my gosh, are you serious? Get a clue, right? And they're just do. So we have to be in proactive, understanding what our triggers are, like what Annabelle said, stop, breathe, assess. But if you just go in there, in the burning building with the lighter fluid in your hand, what's going to happen? The fire is going to get bigger. So you really got to like assess what's happening in the work culture. And then to even make it, I'm even going to stretch it even more. We work with women. Okay. And this is no pun intended. Women are freaking emotional creatures. And it's a very, very beautiful gift, but also at the same time, sometimes our emotions get the best of us. So again, we work with women. So women, sometimes when we're working all together, and there's thousands of women we work with, we do not mesh at every single moment of every single day. So learning and understanding the different cultures, the different languages, the body language, like all of those things matter. But again, it goes back to making the progress, understanding, listening instead of always talking. Become a listener, because a lot of times when people are speaking, we're trying to say something back and we're not really listening to what they're communicating. We just want to go in and say, yeah, but sometimes really all someone is saying is, hey, I just need you to hear me. And we like the hustle culture. Going back to the very first question, why did all this start? And here's my take. And the younger generation is going to be mad at Hannah, and that's okay. This hustle culture comes in from social media, and everybody thinking, I can open up a YouTube channel and I'm going to be rich and famous tomorrow. The more hours you work, the more successful you'll be. Everything has to be done fast, 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 fast. The younger generation has come in and plowed through. They don't take care of themselves. They're anxious, diabetic, have heart disease. We are seeing young women, and I'm pointing out women because that's what She Rises mainly focuses on. I go to the doctor a lot for cancer stuff. I cannot even tell you how many young women I see in these offices about anxiety, depression, all these chronic illnesses. And it's because they're in hustle culture. I'm saying to society, slow down. Stop making everything seem like it has to happen right now. Right now, right now. It doesn't. Being alive today in this day and time is so incredible. You're watching technology change. You're watching women step into lanes that you've never seen them. And along with that, you're also watching women burn at both ends of the stick because they feel so compelled to do it all. And it just isn't so. So for those who continue that hustle culture, shame on you, because you're putting an awful burden on women across the board, and you're teaching our even younger generation to do the same. So cut it out, because it's bull crap. And start speaking the truth that yes, you struggle. Those hoity-toity social media people that get on there and, oh, my life is perfect and I am that perfect beach body, summer body bullshit. Stop it, because that is not true. Your ass is in there in the gym. Nobody was born perfect. Nobody was. And the sooner we realize it, the better off we'll all be. And then to chime in on Julianne's thing, and then I'm going to relinquish the mic. You are so 100% correct. Grief is not just about death. Grief is about loss, period. If it's a loss of a job, if it's a lot like finding out something so horrible that you feel a heartbreak within, that is grief. And I have lived it more in my whole life since 2017 than I have in all the years that I have been on this planet. The day the doctor told me, you have 5 years, May 25th, 2017, I left that office and I felt like my heart snapped in 2 places. And I have never been the same. Every time I've gone into a treatment room, I grieve. Every time I see other women around me who are affected with chronic illness, I grieve. Every time I lose someone that I love to the disease that I have been affected by, that I've gotten to know, I grieve. And then I feel guilty because I'm like, but I'm still here. What makes me different than that person? Or every time something happens within my business, when somebody doesn't like me and I'm like, oh my God, I love this person. What did I do? I grieve. There's so many different ways to express and explain grief. It's a matter of us understanding. So I'm going to call Julianne for an appointment because she hit so many nails on the head. grief is the thing. Imposter syndrome, whoever came up with that, can we change that too? Because we shouldn't have, we're not imposters, we're us. When do we start identifying our strengths and focusing on who we are as women, unleashing that power? We wrote this book, Women, we wrote Unleash Her. When do we really breathe, eat, and sleep what we write, what we share, what we speak? When does it become a lifestyle for us? You know, stop getting in the car and putting the luggage and stopping and picking up more luggage and picking up more luggage and picking up more luggage. And then you don't let any luggage out. Next thing you know, your car is full and all your check engine lights are on. And sometimes when the check engine light comes on, it's too late. It's too late. So don't let it be too late. You know, lean into that support group. Whatever you're feeling, whatever triggers, process them. Call Julianne, call Annabelle, call Ashley, call Yana, call somebody, but reach out and ask for the help and stop putting these stupid stigmas on that hustle, 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 hustle. It's just crap. It's ridiculous. Okay, I'm done.
I got so involved into listening that. Okay, we are close to closing. We have like 15 minutes or so. So I would like to maybe throw in one more thought from today's conversation. So a lot of women around me, and not just women, a lot of people around me basically accept stress as, oh, I'm just hungry, you know, I'll have a bite and it will be all fine, you know, I'm going to have a sleep tonight and it's going to be all fine tomorrow morning. And we wait and we wait and we wait until physically there is a projection that could be completely damaging for life. As Hannah said, you know, at some point you become the suitcase. It's no longer you carrying it. You turned out to be a suitcase now. What do we do next? And I do agree that there is too much hustle going on around. And do you think that all of that is happening because of lack of proper education? We don't really learn that at school. We don't learn how to be good people at school. We don't learn about virtues and moral. We don't learn about how to utilize money, how to use time, how to understand people, how to communicate with people. So is the problem that we don't have the good education? Is it the problem that we're too afraid to actually show who we are, and that's why we need to meet someone else's expectation? Or is the problem that, well, we just got used to it, so crack on with it, and you know, we're all gonna die eventually, so whatever? And I'm gonna go with Ashley on this one first.
Yeah, so I think a quick point here is that we look for these different labels, and there's so many labels out there, and we choose these labels. And I don't know if it's like a quick band-aid, because you know, when you're the hypochondriac, always looking for something wrong with them, and then you find the title, it's like, oh yeah, this is what's wrong with me, and then you fall into that little trap. And I just feel that, you know, it could be all unlearned. They should be teaching more of this in schools. They should be teaching children today. I think, you know, I'm a true believer in this as well, because I feel like my whole life I like lived in the stress line. But once I really started doing that inner mindset work, you don't have to work hard to be successful. Yes, you put in work, but even for myself, if I start finding that I'm tensing up, or if I'm feeling some kind of resistance or something, I take a break. I regulate my nervous system. You know, I'm always trying to make it that my morning routines are there. I teach it to my daughter. And these are things that really need to be talked about, because also too, these labels, people could be even ashamed, like whether it could be with stress, depression, and this imposter syndrome, not ashamed, but what's that word I'm looking for? Like, it could be ashamed. Like, you know what I mean? They're nervous. They don't want to come out and really talk about it, when this should be an open topic about it, because there's nothing wrong. It's just a little bump, something that you're going through that you can so overcome. So that was my little 2 cents.
Thank you. I totally agree with you. Absolutely. It seems like the more we dig deeper into that, it seems like we genuinely have our entire life kind of messed up with everything we've learned at some point. And it seems like we're not going to unlearn it anytime soon. And the scary thing is that there are a lot of people who are now opening to that, a lot of women as well, because women are raising the next generation. But there is a massive chunk of people and women that don't really pay attention to that at all. And they're also raising the next generation. So maybe the next one is going to be Julian, just on that topic about what, how, when should we change? And isn't it getting to the point now where we're so much abusing the word self-care that people are going to at some point start getting stressed about self-care as well?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I look back. So, I didn't talk about my history, but I lost my husband to suicide in 2005, and my children are 7 and 3. And so grief, that is how I became very aligned with grief. And what I've learned looking back now is that I experienced a very traumatic event. And I still wanted to look okay to people. I mean, I knew they knew that I was sad, but I didn't want anyone to think that I was not handling my life. And what a terrible, terrible thing to take on. Now, 18 years later almost, I look back and I say, why would I have taken that on? Because the amount of stress that caused me, the way that I ended up delaying some of my own grief because I was more concerned about being okay than I was about getting through the feelings. It's what we do though. And we do that with big things and we do that with little things. And for some reason, this pressure to be everything to everyone has taken over our life. And so I guess what I want to point out is that it's up to us to begin to make the change. So Hannah said it, when are we going to live what we write? The reason I started writing books and doing speaking engagements and talking about all of the things that I think I have to say from life lessons now is that I want other people to be free of the expectation that we have to conform to expectations that are not possible. We are teaching children. I mean, I look at the school system now and I look at when I was a child, and I'm in my mid-50s, so I'm a ways down the road here. We used to take a nap in kindergarten. Okay? Yeah, right. Okay. So we used to take a nap in kindergarten. Those children are 5. They've been on the planet how many days? Like less than 2,000 days. Now we are, and we were essentially getting socialized. Now in kindergarten, they have to read and write. And we continue to push and push and push. And now you can't get into a college unless your grade point average is a 4.8. When I grew up, there was only a 4.0, and I had it, believe me. I graduated Valedictorian High School. But these are this crazy things that we've created in this society. And we have, and if your kid isn't a 4.8, you must have not been a good mom. Oh my gosh, they have a 3.9. I don't know where all these things have come from, but I'm going to challenge everyone who is watching this panel to step back and say, how can I start supporting people to not be perfect? How can I validate that life is not perfect, that we experience these intense situations that cause us grief and stress and all these things? But how can I validate that and say, I'd rather fill my life with people who want to be imperfect with me than people who I have to try to meet their expectation. Because, I would rather have people come to my house and say, and I don't even, my house used to be like a museum, like Annabelle was saying. There couldn't be one thing out of place. The stress of that. Now I'm like, yeah, well, if you come over, just remember there might be something sitting somewhere. And, that has freed me. When are we going to say, let me come to your home in the way in which you live? Come to my house and see the way in which I live, and let's just enjoy one another. So I don't know if that's probably not the question that you asked, but I have to tell you, that's a little bit of my soapbox, because I want people to be authentic. And that's really what we're talking about today.
I love that. Thank you so much. And you did answer the question, to be honest.
Sure.
And breathe.
I know, right?
Seems like we have created a system and a set of rules so rooted into that system that we've forgotten we are the system. We completely forgot we're the system, actually. Annabelle, any final thoughts on the system or suitcases or, people that eat sand? You're on mute.
Yes. So just a quick thing. It's like, yeah, where does that come from? That thing about napping 5-year-olds. I was online somewhere and I saw an article where somebody was asking for a tutor for their 5-year-old child to make sure that they got into the right preparatory school to prepare them for private schools later in life. And I was thinking, I mean, seriously, this is only going to go one way. You've got a tutor for a 5-year-old? That kid should be out playing in the mud, in my opinion. Anyway, I think if there was a final thing that I would say is be really careful about your use of the word should. Because we all beat ourselves up. Oh, I know I should be keeping my house tidy. I should be doing this. We beat ourselves up with this. I know I should. I should have done that. We add more pressure on ourselves by our use of that word. So I'd really challenge you to pick yourself up. When you hear yourself saying, oh, I know I should have done that yesterday, or I didn't do it yesterday. But what I did do yesterday was all of this stuff. So I'm going to focus on that and not the one thing that I didn't do. Beware of the word should. Don't put yourself under undue stress and pressure with overuse of it.
I love that. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. If I should, I would have. So gone. Bing, bang, bosh. Hannah, welcome to the jungle.
I have to say, and I'm probably going to hear it later, this is probably one of the best roundtable discussions I have ever listened to and been a part of, because there's so many things that we talked about. I think we should do another one. But in regards to here in the States, schools do not teach anything except reading, writing, math, social studies, science. They do not teach children social behavior, self-esteem, confidence. In fact, it's almost comical to me because they always talk about bullying, right? But why are kids bullying? Why are kids experiencing anxiety? Why do kids pick on other kids? Why don't kids nap? And here's the short answer. Number one, it's not discussed in schools. Our teachers, our education system here, and yeah, I'm about to put my state on blast. Nevada ranks one of the last in education and resources. It is awful. My 10-year-old was taught all of 4th grade almost by substitute teachers. My 10-year-old goes through so much in school of, well, what will the kids say? No, I don't want my parents to come. I feel embarrassed. No, I don't want this. They are taught at such a young age to worry about the opinion of others, not to understand to be a kid. What does it mean to be a kid? I tell Sophia constantly, Sophia, please be 10. Be 10. You do not need to rush to grow up. You need to slow your roll and be 10. Go get dirty, go ride your skateboard, wear a helmet, but be 10. Stop trying to adult. Another side of that is parents talk to their children as if they are little adults. Cut it out. Because if you don't, your child, and this happens a lot with single moms. I was a single mom for many years. My youngest two were exposed to so much because I was a single mom. So it was like they were like my little roadies, right? So they go through what I go through. They didn't know what it meant to be a child because they were always worried about, how's mom going to do this? Are we going to be okay? So to the single moms, especially, you have an entire army behind you willing to support you and be that listening ear so that your children can be children and you can talk to someone who can help. And to the education system, everybody needs to put help in there so that all of us collectively, moms, dads, teachers, principals, counselors, everybody across the world can teach our children collectively, collaboratively, how to function in society, how kids can embrace their uniqueness, their skill, their talents. If they're different, who cares? I have a nephew who's autistic and he's incredible. I mean, freaking awesome. My grandson has a speaking issue, but he's like my love bug of love bugs. And I'm scared for him to go to school because he has the most incredible heart and kids make fun of him already at the park because of how he talks. And then Grandma Bear wants to come in there and be like, whoa. You know, why do you treat people like that? You learn that crap at home. It's what you're seeing at home. It's what the teachers aren't or are teaching. So we have to get on the same page and understand we're all on the same team. Until that happens, I don't know what will change. But I know it's like as relevant as COVID is, so is this. So is this. This is just as important, if not, because COVID is a 10-day thing. This is lifelong. What you're teaching is lifelong. So get on the train, choo-choo, and let's help all our kids and one another. Thank you, babies. Like my grandbabies just brought me a candy. You know, like it's what they learn at home. It's what we teach our kids at home. That's what this is. So it starts within us and it starts at home.
Thank you, Hannah. I love that. Absolutely love that. And I just want to close off completely the conversation with, first of all, thanking all of you ladies for sharing and talking through that. I wanted to bring that topic on the table because either we're really overly dramatic about stress or stress is going to be forever and ever into our blood unless something changes. So in the spirit of this conversation, I'm going to challenge anyone listening, the live, the recording, whatever, if you pop up with my name, challenge. Remember, I'm challenging you. Think about stress. Think about who's causing the stress. Think about what can you do to prevent the stress. And think about the person next to you. How can you help that person prevent that stress? And are you really saying what you want to say, or are you just using well-known labels because you see everyone does that and we should all be sheep? No, we shouldn't. We have brains, you know? Let's start using them more often. Thank you, ladies, and thank you everyone for joining. I'm Yana, and good night.